Have you ever looked across a crowded room and felt like someone else's pain was screaming louder than your own thoughts? The kind of pain that doesn't make noise, but still hits you right in the chest. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. We love you to subscribe our channel for more interesting single dad stories. Millie West sat frozen in her chair at one of Savannah's most expensive restaurants, the kind of place where crystal glasses clinked softly and nobody ever raised their voice. She should have been used to rooms like this. She owned half the hotels in the city. But tonight, none of that mattered. Across from her, her 7-year-old son stared at his plate. Untouched food, folded hands. Silent tears slipping down his cheeks. 8 days. 8 days since Jude had said a single word. Millie tried to breathe normally, even as panic clawed at her ribs. "Just one bite, buddy," she whispered, forcing a smile that felt fake even to her. For me, no response, not even a blink. At another table near the window, Landon Silas noticed them too, but not before his daughter did. "Daddy," 5-year-old Dazzle whispered, tugging his sleeve. "Why is that boy crying?" Landon followed her gaze and immediately felt that familiar ache, the one that never really left after his wife died. The boy looked hollow, like someone had taken all the sound out of him. "Sweetheart," Landon said gently, "it's not polite to stare." "I'm not staring," Dazzle replied seriously. "I'm noticing." That made him pause. Dazzle had been noticing people ever since she lost her mom 3 years ago. Pain had a way of sharpening her awareness, like she could spot sadness from a mile away. "He's the kind of sad that doesn't go away," she added quietly. "Like when you don't talk because words don't work." Landon swallowed hard. At the window table, Millie's hands shook as she reached for her water. She felt every judging glance, every unspoken assumption. Too busy, too cold, too career-obsessed. Her ex-husband's words echoed in her head like a bad remix she couldn't turn off. "You care more about your company than your kid." The doctor had called it selective mutism, trauma response. Therapy recommended, court dates scheduled. 13 days left to prove she wasn't a terrible mother. "Jude," she whispered again, voice cracking, "this used to be our special place. Remember, Thursdays were our thing." Another tear fell. That's when Dazzle slid off her chair. "Whoa, whoa, hang on," Landon muttered, already standing. "Kiddo, you can't just—" Too late. Dazzle marched straight up to the stranger's table like she owned the place. She stood there for 3 whole seconds, studying Jude like she was solving a puzzle no one else could figure out. Then she tapped Millie's arm. "Excuse me," Dazzle said politely. "I'm Dazzle. Is it okay if I talk to your boy? He looks like he needs a friend, and I'm really good at that." Millie blinked. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Behind Dazzle, Landon froze, heart pounding, already imagining apologies and embarrassment, but then Jude's fingers twitched. Just a little, and for the first time in 8 days, something shifted. Dazzle hadn't said a word to Jude yet, but somehow she'd already reached him. What was this little girl about to say that no adult had been able to? What if the first person who truly understood your pain didn't ask you to explain it at all? Millie stared down at the little girl standing beside her table, purple dress slightly wrinkled, curls bouncing like she'd walked straight out of a fairy tale and into real life. For a split second, Millie considered saying no, this was a stranger after all, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the calm in the child's eyes. Maybe it was the way Jude hadn't pulled away. I suppose that's okay," Millie said slowly, glancing at the man hovering behind the girl. "If he's comfortable." Landon opened his mouth to apologize, to scoop Dazzle up and retreat before things got awkward. But Dazzle was already climbing into the empty chair next to Jude like this was completely normal. "Hi," she said cheerfully. "I'm Dazzle, like Sparkles." Jude didn't look at her, didn't move, didn't speak. Most adults would have panicked, tried harder, filled the silence. Dazzle didn't. She swung her feet gently under the chair and leaned closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "You don't gotta talk," she said. "Talking is overrated anyway." Millie's breath hitched. Landon felt his chest tighten. "When I'm really sad," Dazzle continued, "sometimes my words hide. My daddy says that's okay. He says feelings don't need permission." Jude's breathing slowed. That's when Dazzle dropped the bomb, softly, casually, like it wasn't the most powerful thing anyone had said to him all week. "My mommy lives in the sky now." Landon flinched. Dazzle didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Jude, voice steady. "She left when I was little, and it hurt real bad. Like stomach hurting, can't breathe sad." Jude's fingers curled slightly. Movement. Millie pressed her hand to her mouth. "But guess what?" Dazzle smiled, not fake happy, just gentle. "I didn't disappear, I'm still here. And so are you." She placed her small hand on Jude's, slow, careful, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. "When I don't want to talk," she said, "I just sit with someone. Being quiet together counts." A tear slid down Jude's cheek, but his shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. Dazzle tilted her head. "You heard grown-ups yelling, didn't you?" Millie stiffened. Jude swallowed, a tiny nod. Dazzle nodded too, like she already knew. "Yeah, that stuff messes you up, makes your heart feel like it broke and nobody noticed." Jude's lips parted, just barely. "You don't need a whole crowd," Dazzle whispered. "Just one person who won't bounce when things get messy." She thought for a moment, then grinned. "I think you need a sister." Millie gasped. Landon froze. Jude finally looked at her. "A sister. Not a real one," Dazzle clarified quickly. "Like a friend's sister, I can be on your team, I don't quit." Silence hung heavy. Then, "Promise," Jude whispered. The word scraped out, shaky but real. Millie broke. Dazzle crossed her heart dramatically. "Pinky promise." "I'm hardcore about promises." Something cracked open in the room. Something real. Jude had spoken, but the real shock was still coming, because his next request would change all four of their lives forever. What if one quiet sentence from a child forced four strangers to cross a line they never planned to step over? Millie felt her entire body lock up when Jude spoke, not because of what he said, but because he said anything at all. I'm Jude," he whispered, eyes still fixed on Dazzle like she might disappear if he blinked too long. Dazzle beamed like he'd just pulled off a magic trick. "That's an awesome name. It sounds like a superhero or an astronaut." Jude nodded barely, but it was enough. Landon felt something twist painfully in his chest. 8 days of silence and his daughter, his tiny, stubborn, too brave daughter, had cracked the wall without even trying to break it. Millie wiped her face, embarrassed by the tears but unable to stop them. "That's the first time he's spoken in over a week," she said softly to Landon. I don't even know how to thank you." Landon shook his head. "You don't thank Dazzle, you just try to keep up." At the table, Dazzle was already deep into a conversation Jude didn't have to talk through. She was explaining how her neighbor's cat once ate a sock and survived, and how that clearly meant cats were secretly indestructible. Jude listened, really listened. Then, out of nowhere, Dazzle frowned. "This is dumb." The adults tensed. "We can't be friend-siblings at different tables," she declared. "That's not how teams work." Jude glanced at his mother. Fear flickered across his face like he was scared he'd already asked for too much just by existing again. "Mom," he said quietly, can we sit with them?" Millie's breath caught, a full sentence, a request. Hope rushed in so fast it scared her. She looked at Landon, panic and gratitude tangled in her eyes. "I understand if this is weird, we don't have to." "It's fine," Landon said quickly. "Yeah, totally fine." The restaurant staff moved the tables together, smiles soft, like they knew they were witnessing something rare. Within minutes, 4 strangers sat facing each other, united by two kids who acted like this had been the plan all along. Dazzle clapped her hands. Okay, good, now Jude can tell me about space. Jude hesitated, then spoke, halting but proud. I like rockets, they go really fast. Millie laughed through her tears, actual laughter. Across the table, adult conversation stumbled into existence, awkward, hesitant, real. Names were exchanged, apologies made, gratitude shared. I'm Millie, she said, and thank you for letting your daughter do whatever that was. My pleasure, Landon replied dryly. She runs the show. As food arrived, Jude ate 3 bites of grilled cheese, not much, but to Millie it felt like winning the lottery. When the check came, Millie reached for it immediately. Please, I insist. Landon hesitated. You don't have to. My son spoke today, Millie said firmly. That's priceless. Dazzle leaned over to Jude. See. Told you today was important. As they stood to leave, Dazzle tugged on Millie's sleeve. Can we have a play date? Millie blinked. A play date? Jude looked hopeful, terrified, brave. Landon held his breath. Millie smiled. Yeah, she said softly. I think we can make that happen. Dazzle nodded like she'd expected nothing less, because she already knew. A simple playdate sounded harmless, but neither adult realized it would reopen wounds they thought were healed and spark something neither of them was ready for. What if a simple playdate turned into the moment your carefully controlled world started slipping out of your hands? Landon almost turned the car around twice. His old Camry rattled as he pulled up in front of Millie West's house, a massive 3-story Victorian wrapped in white columns and iron gates. The kind of place that looked like it belonged in a magazine, not in the life of a widowed construction manager with coffee stains on his dashboard. Daddy, Dazzle said, pressing her face to the window. Is this a castle? Pretty much, Landon muttered, but with better plumbing. Millie opened the door before they could knock. She wasn't wearing a power suit or heels, just jeans and a soft gray t-shirt, hair pulled back like she hadn't slept enough. For some reason that made Landon relax. They're in the backyard, she said with a tired smile. I think they're investigating a caterpillar or possibly an alien invasion. Dazzle bolted past her without hesitation. Landon followed more slowly, unsure where he fit in this polished world. The smell of fresh coffee drifted from the kitchen. You want some? Millie asked. Yeah, please, desperately. They stood at the counter, watching through the window as Jude animatedly explained something to Dazzle, his hands moving, his voice cautious but alive. He's been talking more, Millie said quietly. Not non-stop, but better. Landon nodded. That's huge. Her voice dropped. The therapist says having someone his age who gets it might have cracked something open. Dazzle hadn't stopped talking about Jude since the restaurant. She'd officially declared him her friend-brother and announced they were now a family unit. In the backyard, the kids built something they called Moonbase Popover, a mess of blankets, chairs, and imagination. Jude laughed, actually laughed. Millie leaned against the counter. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. How did you keep going after your wife died? The question hit him square in the chest. I didn't, Landon said honestly. Not really, I just kept moving. Dazzle needed breakfast, clean clothes, bedtime stories, so I did those things even when I felt empty. He paused. Eventually, the motion started feeling like life again. Millie nodded slowly. I feel like I failed Jude. I was so focused on building stability that I forgot presence. You didn't fail, Landon said firmly. You're here, you're trying, that counts more than perfection. Out back, Dazzle suddenly yelled, Daddy. Jude says escape velocity is 7 miles per second. Landon blinked. That sounds legit. Millie laughed, real and unguarded. He hasn't talked that much in weeks. The afternoon stretched into evening. When it was time to leave, both kids protested loudly. But we didn't finish the secret handshake, Dazzle argued. And I didn't show her rockets yet, Jude added. Millie hesitated, then said, "How about next Saturday?" Their faces lit up. As Landon buckled Dazzle into the car, his chest felt strange. Lighter, warmer. Driving home, Dazzle yawned. "Daddy, yeah, kiddo. I think Jude needed me," Landon smiled. "I think we all did." He didn't realize yet that this was only the beginning. The playdates would continue, but soon the kids wouldn't be the only ones getting attached. What happens when something meant for your kids starts healing parts of you that you never planned to open again? The sleepovers started accidentally. One Saturday turned into two. Two turned into every other weekend. Landon would drop Dazzle off at Millie's house, exchange a quick wave at the door, and leave before things got awkward. Except they stopped being quick. "Coffee?" Millie asked one morning, already holding out a mug like she knew the answer. That became routine too. Coffee turned into sitting at the kitchen island. Sitting turned into talking. Talking turned into not noticing the time. The kids built forts and called them command centers. Jude taught Dazzle about planets. Dazzle taught Jude how to make friendship bracelets, badly but enthusiastically. And somewhere in the background, Landon and Millie started learning each other. "Grant says I approach motherhood like a business plan," Millie admitted one afternoon, watching Jude laugh at something Dazzle said. "He says I strategize instead of feel." Landon didn't hesitate. "That's crap," Millie blinked. "You plan because you care," he continued. "Because you want him safe. That's not cold, that's love wearing a suit." Her eyes filled. "He's filing for more custody." Anger flashed through Landon. "Using your kid's trauma as ammo is low, like real low." Millie exhaled. "Thank you for saying that." They talked about Elise, Landon's wife, the hospital nights. The moment everything stopped, he admitted he still talked to her picture sometimes. "I don't think loving someone new means I stopped loving her," he said quietly. "But it still feels wrong to even think it." Millie nodded. "Grief doesn't come with rules. Anyone who says otherwise is lying." On the porch one evening, fireflies blinking in the yard, Millie said softly, "These Saturdays are the best part of my week." Landon's chest tightened. "Mine too." Neither of them said the obvious thing. They didn't talk about fear or guilt or how dangerous it felt to want something again, but they felt it. The custody hearing loomed closer. Millie grew quieter, tension etched into her shoulders. "If the judge thinks I caused Jude's trauma," her voice shook, "I could lose him." "You won't," Landon said. "You're his mom." "That matters." The day of the hearing, Millie called Landon afterward, voice shaking. "It's over. Joint custody stays the same." Relief slammed into him. "That's huge." "Jude's progress helped," she whispered. "The therapist documented everything." "Your daughter," she stopped, emotional. "She saved us." That night they celebrated with pizza at Landon's small apartment. The kids passed out in a blanket pile by 10. On the couch, silence stretched, but it wasn't awkward. "Landon," Millie said carefully, "I don't know what this is." He looked at her. "Me neither." "But," she continued, "I don't want it to stop." His heart pounded. "Me either." They sat there, close but not touching, both scared to name what was growing. Because naming it would mean risking it. They hadn't crossed the line yet, but the tension was building. And soon one honest confession would force them to decide, walk away or leap. What if the scariest thing isn't falling in love again, but admitting you already have? The words sat between them like a live wire. "I don't want it to stop." Landon stared at the floor, then back at Millie. His heart was doing that stupid thing, racing like he was about to jump off a cliff without checking the water first. "I need to be honest," he said finally. "I'm terrified." Millie let out a shaky laugh. "Same. Absolutely same." "I loved my wife," Landon continued. "Still do. Some days it feels like moving forward means leaving her behind." Millie's voice softened. "Loving again doesn't erase what came before. It just adds to it. That night they didn't kiss, they didn't label anything. They just agreed quietly to try, slowly, carefully. Over the next few weeks, things shifted. Text messages replaced awkward silences. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into long walks while the kids played ahead of them. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching Jude and Dazzle chase fireflies, Millie said, "I look for you now, when something good happens." Landon swallowed. "Me too." He told Dazzle about Millie, not as something serious, but as someone important. "Is she my pretend mom?" Dazzle asked bluntly. "No," Landon said gently. "She's just Millie." Dazzle considered that. "Okay. But Jude is still my brother." "Obviously." Millie talked to Jude too. "Is Landon your friend, Dad?" Jude asked. "Maybe," Millie smiled, "if he wants to be." The first kiss happened on accident, a late night, empty kitchen, dishes half done. Millie reached for a towel. Their hands brushed. They froze, then laughed, then stopped laughing. The kiss was soft, careful, like both of them were asking a question instead of making a statement. Afterward, they pulled apart fast. "That was probably a bad idea," Millie whispered. "Yeah," Landon agreed, "probably." Neither looked convinced. They decided to do it right, a real date, no kids, no excuses. They went back to the same restaurant where it all started. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. "I practiced what I wanted to say," Landon admitted nervously. Millie smiled. "Dazzle told me." "Of course she did." "I don't want to rush this," Landon said seriously. "But I don't want to hide from it either." Millie nodded. "I'm scared of failing again." "Me too." "So what do we do?" He took her hand. "We try scared." Her eyes filled. "Okay." That night they kissed again, longer this time. Less question, more promise. Neither of them noticed the two small figures peeking around the corner of the hallway later that night, whispering urgently. "I told you," Dazzle whispered. Jude nodded. "They like each other." "They're gonna need help," Dazzle said confidently, and just like that, the kids had a plan. Landon and Millie thought they were moving slowly, but they had no idea the kids were already planning the next step. What if the smallest people in the room decided your future needed a little push? Landon noticed it first. The whispering. Every time he entered the room, Dazzle and Jude suddenly went quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that screamed we're plotting something. "Why are they staring at us like that?" Millie murmured one Saturday afternoon as they sat on the porch. "I don't know," Landon said carefully, "but I've seen that look before. Right before Dazzle accidentally glued my wallet shut." Inside, the kids were sprawled on the living room floor with markers, paper, and an alarming level of focus. "This is the plan," Dazzle whispered dramatically. "Step 1. Operation Family," Jude nodded. "Step 2, make them talk. Step 3, Dazzle added, celebrate." That evening, Dazzle struck. "Daddy," she said loudly during dinner. "Miss Millie makes you smile more." Landon choked on his water. Millie froze. "I do not," Landon started. "Yes, you do," Dazzle insisted. "Your face does the thing," Millie laughed nervously. "What thing?" Jude cleared his throat. "The soft thing, like when my mom reads at night." Landon set his fork down. "Okay, time out." But the kids weren't done. "Are you guys married?" Dazzle asked. "No," Millie said quickly. "Do you want to be?" Jude asked, equally quick. Silence slammed down. "Guys," Landon said carefully, "grown-up stuff is complicated." Dazzle crossed her arms. "So is space. Jude understands space." Jude nodded solemnly. "It's mostly gravity and timing." That night, after the kids were asleep, Millie sat beside Landon on the couch. "They're not wrong," she said quietly, "about us meaning something." Landon sighed. "I know, I just don't want to mess this up." Millie looked at him. "We already are something. Avoiding it won't make it safer." He met her eyes. "You really want this?" "I want us," she said, "whatever that looks like." The next day, Landon did something he hadn't done in years. He talked to Elise's picture. I miss you, he whispered, but I think you'd want me to live. To love. That afternoon, he showed up at Millie's door holding flowers like an awkward teenager. She laughed and cried. Yes, she said before he even asked. The kids celebrated like they'd won a championship. Operation Family succeeded, Dazzle declared. Jude grinned, told you timing mattered. They didn't know yet how messy blending lives could be. There would be hard conversations, bad days, fear. But for the first time, Landon felt ready. Because this time, he wasn't walking alone. They said yes to each other, but one final test still waited ahead. The moment that would prove whether love could really rebuild a family. What if the family you needed wasn't the one you lost, but the one you never saw coming? 1 year later, the Willowbrook looked exactly the same. Soft lights, polished tables, that same corner by the window, but everything else had changed. Dazzle, now 6 and somehow even more confident, stood on her chair, pointing dramatically at the table. This is where it all started, historical location. Jude rolled his eyes, 8 years old and already allergic to exaggeration. You mean when you interrupted strangers? I rescued strangers, Dazzle corrected. Big difference. Across from them, Landon and Millie exchanged smiles, the easy kind that only came after choosing each other every single day. Life hadn't magically turned perfect. Millie still worked long hours. Landon still had nights where grief crept in quietly. Jude still went silent when overwhelmed. Dazzle still felt everything at full volume. But now they handled it together. They'd taken things slow, really slow, separate houses, therapy, hard conversations, mistakes owned instead of buried. And somewhere along the way, trying had turned into belonging. At dinner, Jude leaned toward Dazzle. You know, if you hadn't talked to me that night, she shrugged. You looked like you needed a sister. Millie's eyes filled. You saved my son, Dazzle frowned. I didn't save him, I just stayed. That hit harder than anything else. Later that night, walking out of the restaurant, Landon stopped under the warm glow of the streetlights. He took a breath. Dazzle, he said. Jude, Miss Millie. Both kids looked up, instantly suspicious. I've been thinking, Landon continued, heart pounding. About family. Millie's hand found his. I don't believe family is about blood, he said. I think it's about choosing each other over and over. He looked at Jude. Would you like me to be your friend, Dad? For real? Jude didn't hesitate. Yes. He turned to Dazzle. And would you be okay sharing your dad? Dazzle grinned. I already did. Millie laughed through tears. Landon took her hand fully. And would you keep choosing us? Millie nodded. Always. Dazzle clapped. Operation Family, Permanent Edition. They stood there, 4 imperfect people stitched together by loss, courage, and one brave little girl who refused to walk away from sadness. Landon understood something then. Love doesn't end. It doesn't replace. It expands. And sometimes the smallest voice in the room tells the biggest truth. Have you ever found family in the most unexpected place? If this story touched your heart, subscribe and tell us, what does family mean to you?